Governor Bobber. Like, good day, doctors.
George Allen here. Good day, doctors.
Here we are. It is Friday, February 25th, 2022. We're in the height of Shamrock Shake season. Winter's in its last throes.
I got my
And
Shamrock
CPAC
Shake
has started. What's that?
I got my Shamrock Shake tonight.
Yeah, I didn't get one today, but I did. But I feel I wasted my 6-mile run yesterday because I didn't get a Shamrock Shake. And
That's
I didn't
where you
get
get
around
into
to getting
trouble
one
is you
today.
start tying in your runs to food rewards, and then you wind up, putting it all back on like I did. This
No,
is
actually,
this
you know
talk
what?
with Brian.
No, but the way you do is you got to run 6. You can't run 2 miles and get a Shamrock Shake. You got to do 6 because at 6 miles you're burning roughly about 2,000 calories, close to that. A Shamrock Shake is 850 calories, a large one. There you go.
Well, if I'm getting one, I'm not getting a small.
Yeah, exactly. You get a large. Large is 850.
It's America, man.
I know. I wish they had a supersized Shamrock Shake, frankly.
Okay, let's not go that far. That's
Yeah, really, seriously.
I have.
The large is plenty large,
Yeah,
I think.
I still haven't gotten one yet. So.
Somebody have this on. I'm hearing an echo.
No, I got the headphones on.
Oh, I see. Okay, there we go. That's better. Anyways, as you know, it's been a busy week. A lot of things happening internationally, and some of our local people starting to look like if Joe McCarthy were alive today, there'd be a certain candidate and his supporters would be branded communist sympathizers. But I think we're all in agreement. We're all pleasantly surprised that the Russians haven't made it to don't have a full control of Kiev, and President Zelensky is still around and rallying the faithful. He's the Winston Churchill.
I think
Selassie.
I agree with you, Dwight. It's very interesting because I think a lot of people, myself included, were afraid that the Russians were gonna walk across, Ukraine like it was nothing. I mean, when you think about it, Ukraine's geography is very susceptible to invasion, like most of the North European plain. I mean, that entire swath from France, basically from the Rhine over to the Urals, is just basically, just one giant Kansas. But I mean, we've also seen in the past the Russians have a lot of trouble in dealing with an outgunned enemy. Just look at what happened in Afghanistan, in Chechnya, in Georgia. The Ukrainians have obviously a lot to fight for because this is their livelihood at stake. It sounds like from the reports that we're getting, and of course, there's a lot of fog of war here. From the reports that we're getting, a lot of the Russian units are not real enthused about being there. You've got protests across Russia. And for those of you keeping score at home, this is how 1917 happened, where you had war protests and people against the war, eventually leading us to 2 revolutions in Russia in a 6-month span. I'm happy. I'm happy that the Ukrainians are fighting so hard and doing so well, and hopefully, they will push the Russians back across the border where they damn well belong.
And here's the thing, as my background is international affairs and so on. This is reminiscent of the 1935 Italian attacks on Ethiopia. Haile Selassie, rightly so, said the League of Nations, you guys are a bunch of inept fools who don't know anything. And quite frankly, let's look at it today. United Nations, just as inept as the League of Nations. Even to a degree, NATO, because we've got no real strong leaders in NATO. There's no Margaret Thatcher, there's no Helmut Kohl, there's no Ronald Reagan to lead NATO. Who's going to rally NATO? Is it going to be the French premier? What's his name? I can't think of his name. Macron?
The president? Yeah.
Yes. Is Macron going to be the head of? I mean, the French.
There's not a whole lot of strong leadership. No, I agree with you.
It's sad when what's his name? The British Prime Minister is the best we've
Johnson,
got.
Yeah. Well, he's an American. What do you expect? He is though. He was born in New York City.
That is true. That is true. And then you got our friendly neighborhood despot north of the border in the Great White North in Canada, where you got Trudeau. I mean, honestly, looking at the crackdown, it warmed Zimmerman's heart this past week.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's funny because it's the Emergencies Act, which is the act that he used to bring all of this down, is the successor to the War Powers Act. The War Powers Act was only used once in Canadian history by some guy named Pierre Trudeau, obviously, Justin Trudeau's dad.
His wife was having an affair with Mick Jagger, too, by the way.
And apparently Fidel Castro, but that's not the point right now. There's actually people
I just like to throw that out there.
There's people who think that Trudeau is Castro's son, and I'll just leave that simmer for a second. But Pierre Trudeau did this with some Quebec separatists who were kidnapping members of parliament and cabinet members and executing them, which is a little more substantive than what was going on in Ottawa. Yeah, it's funny that a lot of the same people, and obviously y'all know I have no love for Trump, but a lot of the same journalists across Canada, even in the United States, who were accusing Trump of being a fascist were awfully quiet when it came to what Trudeau was doing up there in Ottawa.
Yes. Well, remember, Joe Biden thinks Trudeau is the guy that wrote Doomsbury, okay? That's what he thinks. He goes, oh, that's the Doomsbury guy. It's
I don't know.
Sad. It's sad and funny because, frankly, if it weren't such a real possibility, he does think Brian Trudeau confused him with Gary Trudeau.
Justin Trudeau, not Brian Trudeau. Don't lump me into this.
Oh, okay, that's right. Yeah.
You put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
But at the end of the day, we would not tolerate China doing what Canada did. Well, maybe this administration, but there was no condemnation from Joe Biden for the crackdown on peaceable protesters, and which, bringing it all home, they've activated the National Guard, which they did not do when the city was burning. They got, when they created Black Lives Matter Plaza, when they were burning down churches and storming the White House. Not once, I think we had that Mayor Bowser called in the National Guard to deal with that. What's with, as Chris Plant would say, double standards. If they didn't have those, they'd have no standards on the left. I mean, right now they are. I think next week is when the truckers from Florida or California are coming down next week. For the
I don't know
State of
how
the
we're
Union.
supposed to tell they're here. Traffic on the Beltway always sucks.
I know. It's funny. I was on the Beltway for was it Wednesday? They were supposed to come, or Wednesday, or I think it was Wednesday. I think there was some tow truck protests come from Pennsylvania. All I saw was slow people driving the left lane, and that was.
I know that a lot of people in Maryland on the Facebook Warriors were talking about how beautiful this was, and in my understanding, it was one tow truck and a bunch of hangers on, so it wasn't exactly what it was advertised as.
It was like it was the second coming of the Trump train.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, then look, I mean, what is the point for them to really be here at this point in time? I mean, in Canada, at least, you could understand the protest against the vaccine mandates for truckers and things like that, and all of that. And they were, and they were going up against, a government that has just been really ridiculous in terms of how they've been treated, how they treated the truckers. But at this point, where vaccine mandates and all these things, are being lifted, face masks, all this kind of stuff, they're coming in here a little bit late.
All the face masks dropping. Is this an election year? I mean, is this an election year? Is that why they're doing all this stuff?
Fortunately, they finally caught up with the science. But here's the thing: it's Don. It goes back to the same thing we saw in 2020, which is it's a lot easier to get in your car and act like you're doing something than it is to go knock a door or make a phone call and try to actually win an election. That's what it comes down to. People who there are lots of people on the internet who are angry, but none of them want to actually do the work of getting people who agree with them elected.
Yeah. Well, okay, we have there's a particular chairman, one of the county chairmen, who doesn't want to knock doors because he doesn't think it's effective.
Does he give to the Democrats too?
Yes, he does. He just did to David Blair.
Oh, of course he
did. Which is basically a big FU to the state party.
Well, he should probably find a candidate to run for that office as a Republican.
Yeah, they need to find some kid. Now we're up to 3, Brian. The count for candidates in Montgomery County, we're up to 3.
For what?
4 if you we've
like
got
total?
me,
It's you two,
Dan
and what
Kuda,
else?
Dan Kuda, and this guy named Dr. Nice and Chris Haas. That's 4. We're up to 4. And
okay.
so I recruited. I've recruited a couple Senate candidates because I believe he's your senator, Brian Seminary, reached out.
Yes.
And
also not my favorite person, but that's neither here nor there.
Is your friend list shorter than your enemies list?
No comment. Fortunately, a lot of people on my enemies list are already dead, so I've got room for new ones, you know?
Hey, I mean, you and I were on each other's enemies list, so we took ourselves off those enemies.
How is Roger William Hale doing anyway?
I haven't seen much, heard much from Bill.
Yeah, shocker. Well, Sam moved off to North Carolina, where he's missed by nobody, so...
Is he in North Carolina or Pennsylvania?
It doesn't matter. He's gone. I don't care.
No, Sam was a good head. I liked Sam.
Sam was another one of those who liked to do all the talking, but none of the actual work.
I mean, but neither here or there. But I mean, Sam, his heart was in the right place. He did do MD cans for a while, you know, and then MD cans just became something completely different.
Well, then they went away. It's like, you know, what was it, 20?
It was one where Saqib Ali did a protest. That was
2013. You can still find that video out there of us buying the pizza for him. You know, but that was after that, I didn't go to one after that because it's like everything kind of went out there.
I mean, here's it. I worked for Paul Weyrich, Morton Blackwell, Grover Norquist, Reed Irvine, you know, the conservative godfathers, okay? I was Randall Terry's campaign manager. I feel I can say this. I've got my conservative bona fides, you know. I mean, Paul Weyrich was called a fascist. I believe your dad was called a fascist too, right, Don? When we were in California?
He was called a lot of things.
You know, Grover's been called a fascist. I mean, it's a badge of honor. I think if anyone on the right has been called a fascist, frankly, by loony lefties who behave like fascists, frankly.
But those guys were not called miserable, carping, regimented vigilantes like my dad.
That's true. That is true.
Winner.
Just trying to introduce some new terminology to whatever audience we may have out there tonight.
That is true, yeah. But my point is this. Okay, I think, you know, we have conservatives. You've got conservatives. You got the William F. Buckley conservatives. You know, which I think we all fall into that camp. And then you got the other conservatives who are, you know, they're here for the, you know, they're kind of like, you know, it's kind of like if you convert to a different faith, you become more zealot about that faith. Let's say you're a Protestant.
Let's say if you're a Catholic and you convert to Catholicism. I don't know anybody who did that. You know, I'm a lot more vigilant
Catholic
about my Catholicism than a lot of people who were born Catholic. Yeah, you are 100%.
I thought you were born Catholic, anyways. That's news to me.
Yeah, huh. I converted when I was 33.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
But my point is, we've got people that are kind of just, a lot of these people voted for Jimmy Carter and John Kerry and Al Gore, and they just came and they got out. It's kind of like, Brian, maybe, I don't know if you're like that. Do you like grumble at the C&E Catholics when you got to go to, they take up all the good parking?
But I also grumble at the people who were registered Democrats in 2014, run for Congress, and then like become this conservative rock star, even though, you know, they never voted in a primary election until they were on the ballot for CD7 last year, Kim Klacik. You know, it's like you've got all of these people, and I wouldn't mind so much. I know this is, I think, where you were going with this, Dwight, is the fact that the people who are newest to conservatism, and I hesitate to even call it conservatism at this point because some of them are just registered Republicans, thinking they're conservative because they don't understand the tenets of conservatism. It's always them who are calling out the rhinos and all this other stuff for accusing actual conservatives like us of being, of being the rhinos. And that's the part where it's not productive and it's not useful. And they're the ones who are being most vocal and the ones who, if nominated, if put in positions of control, are going to sink the entire ship.
And here's the thing, we're called establishment, and all I have to say is I've got a resume. I've elected governors, congressmen, senators all over the country, not just Maryland, frankly. That's why we're called establishment, because we have a resume.
Yeah, it's funny because if you think back, think about how, I'm like most of the establishment. I started out anti-establishment, and now at some point you just outlive everybody and you're the establishment now. And that's fine. I don't care. I've actually won something, and that's okay with me.
Yeah.
When you guys win something, let me know. The problem is like most of these people, think about how many people, the Lawlers of the world, Karen Winterlings, the Collins Baileys of the world, who come in on houses of fire and then they just flame out and nobody ever hears from them again.
And here's the thing, not to speak ill of many of our fellow conservatives, a lot of them who are friends of ours, but I will say this, remember the Buckley Rule? Vote for the most conservative person that is electable in a primary. And I'd like to give that advice to anybody thinking of voting for Dan Cox. Kelly Schultz can win. Dan Cox, frankly, my house goes on sale and I'm in Florida 20 minutes later.
As I wrote in my endorsement of Kelly last week, I cited the Buckley Rule, and during that piece I didn't even talk about Dan Cox. I got plenty I can talk about Dan Cox, but there is only one candidate running for governor who is a Republican who can win an election, and it's the same rule that we used when Bob Ehrlich ran in 2010. It's the same rule we used when Larry Hogan ran in 2014. Only one person in this race can win. 2014 was a little different because I think David Craig could have won too. But if you look at the candidates, there's only one choice. There's only one of these candidates who can win, and you can either do that, get on that train and help Kelly become the governor of this state, or you can resign yourself to whatever knucklehead the Democrats are putting out there.
And then we'll hear incessant whining for 4 years of why, everything's horrible. Well, who'd you vote for?
Right. Ding dong. Hello.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be the thing, though. I mean, it's just some of those rabid Republicans or whatever, they get on this train and they're like, this is the guy. I'm going to put all my marbles in here with this one person. But is he or she going to be the most electable? No, but they don't seem to care. It's like, do you want to, in this case, in Maryland, do we want to retain the governor's mansion? Yes. Yeah. You got to have some pushback, be as it may against this legislature, but you got to have somebody to stand up against this. And this is what you got to do. But all those Republicans who follow, who've just been rapidly following Cox, I just don't get it. But yet it's not an unusual pattern, right? We've seen this not just in Maryland, we see it in other parts of the country. They do that, and we lose races as a result.
Remember 2012? We nominated what's her name? WWF woman, WWE actually.
Linda McMahon.
Yes, in Connecticut, and we had a Republican that probably could have won that race.
I still think Linda McMahon probably could have won that race too.
It wasn't that bad a candidate.
Connecticut's a hard nut for Republicans to crack.
I mean, Sharon Angle and Christine O'Donnell are better examples of people.
Lauren Witzke last year.
Those were absolute disasters. It's like it's hard as a Republican to vote for that Republican.
It is. I mean, and some states are able to overcome that. Remember when Joe Miller beat Lisa Murkowski in 2010? She was able to lodge a write-in campaign, the only write-in candidate in the last since Strom Thurmond to get elected to the U.S. Senate. So sometimes
my favorite write-in they did for Lisa Murkowski, because her name's kind of hard to spell. Somebody did myrrh, like frankincense and myrrh, and they did cow and sky.
Hey, whatever works, as long as it counts. Some states are
It
very,
did.
very, very strict about that kind of thing with run-ins. I'm sure Maryland is too, but
Mhm.
we've seen that how many times now, where the most conservative candidate is not the person who can actually win. And of course, with Dan Cox's case, I hesitate to call him a conservative at all.
Well, here's the thing. Let's talk. And I consider Dan a friend. But let me just say, what is Dan's accomplishment? He's only been in this house for 4 years. How many actual accomplishments has he actually had with bills? I mean, he has a whole list of bills he sponsors or puts out, right? But how many bills have actually made it through his committee, had a floor vote, and actually gotten to the governor's desk? How
I'd be
many?
willing to bet it's zero. All you need to know
Kelly.
is this: if you look at Cox yesterday,
Mhm.
he had his parental rights bill up there. Now, I haven't read his parental rights bill or not, but one of the people involved in the hearing literally told him, "I have completely lost the thread of what you're talking about." So, I mean, that's not exactly giving me a lot of confidence here. I think it's very telling that if you look at his fellow Republicans in the House,
Yeah.
not a single one of them has endorsed him. If you
Mhm.
look at the people who are the loudest supporters of Dan Cox, they are the same group of dead-enders that supports every other dead-ender who ever runs.
They supported Brian Murphy. They were
Brian
all
Murphy,
gaga
Charles Lawler.
about Sarah Palin.
Yeah.
They were like gaga about Sarah Palin. Sarah Palin endorsed Brian. How'd that work out for Brian Murphy when Sarah Palin endorsed?
Well, Brian Murphy had a lot of problems, not the least of which was the fact that nobody knew who he was.
Well, people confused him with Don Murphy too.
Don Murphy would have done better. Don Murphy would have at least given people pot brownies, convinced them to vote.
Well, we thought Don. There was people who thought Don was Brian's older brother.
I'm sure Don enjoyed that.
But real quick, I found us a Senate candidate, Brian, that can win.
Are you being serious or?
Yes, Ryan Zimmerman. He retired, and he lives in Maryland. I think he'd be a great Senate candidate. He'd be better than Tarrington and the other guy that's running.
Well, I mean, a dry sponge would be better than these guys.
What's that, Don?
So you tried to make that case last week too for Ryan Zimmerman.
I'm making it again. And by the way, where are the pitchers and catchers? Where's my Orioles magic, Brian?
It's in a lockout right now. You can go read more about that at theduckpin.com as well, because I wrote about
You know what I wish? If the Orioles would all cross the picket line and we just play every game, and any team that doesn't show up to play, they forfeit. And guess what? It'll be Orioles magic. We will be in the World Series.
Do you remember what happened in 1995 when the players went on strike and they were about to start the season with replacement players, but the Orioles weren't going to play? Because one, Peter Angelos was a labor lawyer, so he didn't want to cross the unions up.
Oh,
yeah. Two, it's because it would have stopped Cal Ripken's streak. Now, of course, no replacement games wound up being played. They brokered a deal at literally the last minute.
Was this 95 or 94?
95. Well, the strike had started in 94. It didn't end until April of 95.
That's right. Yeah. That was the year the Montreal Expos could have actually gone to the World Series.
It literally killed baseball in Montreal. Yes.
Yeah. That's why they moved to D.C.
And why they'll move somewhere else eventually.
I remember hearing some kid when the Nationals came to town. He goes, "I like new things. That's why I don't like the Orioles anymore. I like the Nationals." Jackass kid, they were the kid. They're the Expos. They're just moving here. It's like the Ravens aren't a new team either.
Right. Well, the NFL treats them like a new team. That's a whole other story for another day. But the problem still is the fact that Nationals have so few actual fans, since most of the lobbyists are the ones buying up all the tickets.
That's not a bad thing. I mean, as long as the Nationals organization is making money, everybody's happy.
I don't care. It's just,
I mean, look at the
it
Orioles.
hurts the Orioles in the long run, too, because all those lobbyists used to buy tickets at Camden Yards.
Yeah, but remember, the Orioles are still making money. People still are going to the Orioles games at Camden Yards.
Did you go to an Orioles game at Camden Yards last year?
No.
There were quite a few games I was there last year where they said 6,000 people were there, but I didn't count more than 1,000.
But they're still making, the team is still making money. I think people are buying tickets and not going because they're afraid of getting shot at going there.
They have virtually no. Their payroll is so low.
That's fine.
which is
I mean,
which is what helps.
I had a friend who went to an Orioles game a couple years ago. They were under a lockdown in the stadium because there were shootings outside of the stadium.
That might have been during Freddie Gray, like 2015-ish. I know they locked down.
Honestly, it was like 2 weeks after Freddie Gray.
Okay, that makes sense.
But
Yeah, that was a fun time.
They should move the Orioles to Towson, frankly.
No,
Get out of the city.
No. I don't want to drive that far.
Do you want to go into the city? Then, okay, let's move over on BWI. Let's move them somewhere near BWI.
They were supposed to. They were back when Camden Yards was. They were discussing building Camden Yards. There's a Walmart, a big Walmart over in Glen Burnie, right off of Route 10.
Oh, Marley Station Mall, right?
No. It's up the road from that. At the corner of Route 10, it's like the intersection of Route 10 and Ordnance Road, right near the old Glen Burnie Mall. There was a big parcel of land there. They eventually built a lead mark there, which is kind of the Americanized version of the French Leclerc, the first hypermarket anywhere in the U.S. And they had talked about building the Camden Yards Stadium at that site, which would have saved me 15 minutes. Look, we still go to Orioles games all the time. But we don't care.
Yeah, but my point is, if they move into the
Camden
suburbs,
Yards is damn near the safest place in the city.
Sad but true. Sad but true. I remember when Baltimore was actually a charming city, but I believe that was when William Donald Schaefer was the mayor.
There are parts of it that still are charming. There are many other parts of it which are much less charming. Go to the zoo. Every time I go to the zoo, every time I go to the zoo now, you have to drive through like West Baltimore, parts of West Baltimore to get there. And every time I wind up like some idiots got their car down smoking weed. And it's just going to get worse. Yeah. It's just going to get worse now that the General Assembly passed today. They passed a bill that would put weed smoking on, like legalized weed, on the ballot this fall.
Honestly, my view on weed is, look, my best friend was killed by somebody that was high on pot that T-boned his Jeep that rolled over 3 times in an intersection because he was going a little fast. But my point is this. It's a gateway drug. Let's be honest. It is a gateway drug. We don't need to be legalizing weed. I know there's people who think, oh, you're just an old stick in the mud. You're not cool. That's why you don't want to legalize. But I'm sorry. It's like, weed, then what are we going to do? Heroin next year, Maryland Democrats? And I know this is all
I've written extensively about this, about particularly what happened in Colorado when you start talking about, it's not just about accidents. It's not just about health effects. It's a societal effects. Mm-hmm. If you went to Denver in 2000, I went to Denver in 2010. I went back in 2017. In between, Colorado legalized weed, and downtown Denver is 1,000 times sketchier now than it was before, because you've got all these people hanging around the dispensaries. Petty crime went up, violent crime went up, homelessness went up. All these things went up. This isn't fear mongering. This is freaking data that is out there talking about these things. And I don't need that in my life. I understand that, I'm willing to compromise on the medicinal marijuana. I get that. Okay. I think there's room for that if done correctly. It ain't being done correctly in Maryland, because if you're going to do medicinal weed, you should go to CVS and get it, not these fakakta dispensaries that keep popping up. But it's
about anything.
What is the point of legalizing? I know there's a racial issue that is made here, but it's not.
I don't see the racial card. I don't see the race card.
Democrats particularly say that marijuana laws are discriminatory because you're more likely to get arrested as an African American for pot possession than you are somebody who is white. Now, mind you, nobody is forcing anybody of any color or any race to buy marijuana illegally.
Thank you.
So I'm not sure, I don't really care about that, but that's the argument that is made, and it's a dumbass argument. And look, you know who this law is being passed for? It's being passed for suburban lax bros who want to smoke their weed.
And Brian, it's also to fund Kerwin. They want pot for tots. Pot for tots. That's what the Maryland educational system was.
For tots didn't.
Oh yeah, that's what they called it when Governor Ehrlich wanted slots. They go, we don't like the idea of slots for tots. Yeah, but you do you're fine with pot for tots because their teacher can come in high as a kite on pot.
I was all for slots for tots. I'm all, I'm gambling.
Yeah,
I don't care.
gambling's fun,
I got a
It's,
sorry about
it's
that.
a victimless crime.
Man, I got I got sports book tickets right here, from going to the casino. But they all lose.
But here's the thing: nobody's gonna die if somebody goes to the casino and blows $1,000, right? But if somebody blows $1,000 worth of marijuana, gets in a car and gets in an accident, somebody could die.
I don't know anything about marijuana, but I'm sure $1,000 you'd have a lot more problems than driving. You're probably seeing rabbits at that point or something.
Exactly. But let's see a couple things.
Are we going to go
mask
back
mandates.
to the issues?
Yeah, the mask mandates.
Now we have diversion to all kinds of things.
This is all gonna. I think this is all going to go back to our friends in Russia. But
we really didn't get that deeply into the whole Ukraine-Russia situation.
Yeah, I mean, you know what really is the worst is Americans who are seemingly defending Russia.
And some of them are Republicans here in Maryland.
Oh, who are these? Can we name one of them?
I would be happy to name it. You could read more over at theduckpin.com. I wrote about Shakina Hollingsworth, who was a Republican candidate for the House of Delegates in District 35A. Huge Dan Cox supporter. Shocker.
Where's 35A?
That's
Where
Harford County. Up in Harford County. And her social media is filled with all sorts of banana stuff.
Hasn't she been seen with like some white supremacist guy?
We'll get to that. And she is an African-American candidate. That's the funny part about all of this. Here's some of the things she was posting on Facebook yesterday. I could care less about Russia invading a border while ours remains open with no intention of closing, no intention of displaying sovereignty, and no intention of displaying strength. Okay, whatever. Here's the killer. At least Putin is a real president who means exactly what he says. Maybe don't kiss up to Putin there. Next, it's not Russia who is censoring you. It's not Russia who's throwing you in jail for having wrong thing. It's not Russia implementing CRT. That's all of our corrupt government. Again, with a lot of Russia love there. Wearing the Adidas drip down today for the based Russians. Yeah, that's actually a thing that's happening. And then, God, it gets worse. She talks about how when it's bad for elitist regimes, it's always good for us, the people. Only the elites want you to be consumed in proxy wars and NATO alliances. Fight the elitist regime at home. Then she posts this 30-second rap video putting over Putin as like a great leader, something that clearly came out of the KGB. Then she proceeds to talk about how, she goes off on Larry Hogan about refusing to send our National Guard to the Mexican border. But he, quote, he sure as hell sent them to D.C. after January 6th to protect the Iron Curtain.
Hey, Brian, also, one other thing, her favorite movie is From Russia with Love.
Oh, I'm sure it is, but her favorite person apparently is Nick Fuentes, the anti-Semitic Holocaust denier, white supremacist jackass. She even incorporated his logo into her own campaign logo. I mean, you can't fix stupid, okay? I mean, I get that, but I mean, what are we doing here, man? It's like this person thinks she should be taken seriously. She got mad. She said I accused her of being a KGB agent. I'm like, I never called you a KGB agent. Is there something you'd like to share?
See, Brian, this is a good campaign logo right there.
That was some guy who looked like Dwight used to look like.
Yes. Right here. This is a great logo down here.
That was 2 Dwights ago.
Yes, it was. This is more current.
Yeah, there you go.
That's actually college Dwight.
There you go.
Yeah. But this is a textbook. Any candidate wants a good website, copy mine.
What you should tell them is to pay you to do it for them.
Oh,
it's called consulting. Have you heard of it?
Yeah. Yes, but with dealing with a lot of my government friends and people, my favorite people, I'd rather push part of off onto a friend, like Ryan or Bats does that, push them off to Bats, because honestly, I don't have the patience anymore. I used to have the patience to deal with stupidity, but I don't know, maybe it's because I'm about to turn 50 and I don't suffer fools like Mark Levin would say. But,
well, I want to.
Yes, that is
go back to what Brian was saying earlier too about kind of hoping that the Ukrainians would be able to push Russia back over the border. I mean, I don't know what the odds are of that. You know, I don't think none of us are really military strategists.
Hey, Brian, do you think there's some hippie Russians driving around with Ukraine, Cyrillic for Afghanistan? Like, you know, the hippies were driving
The
around.
problem is that you can get shot for doing that in Russia. I mean, it's not exactly, nobody's confused.
It's not Boris Yeltsin's Russia.
Yeah, nobody's confused Moscow for Berkeley recently. So I mean, it's and I've been to Moscow. Trust me, you would not confuse the two of them. But it's that's why it's so interesting. I think that you see so many people in the streets protesting this, to see St. Petersburg and Moscow and some of these other places that are protests. The daughter of the Russian, what was it? The Putin's communications director is on TikTok talking about how much she's against the war. So I mean, there is a not small undercurrent of anti-war sentiment across Russia right now.
Brian, you're a student of history like I am, as well as Don is, right? Do you recall the movie Nicholas and Alexandra?
No.
It was the movie about the Tsar.
Wait a minute. No, I have seen that one now that you think of that. I think about it. Yeah. But I am familiar with the Tsar. Yeah.
And what did he have going on? He had a two-front war. And I got to do this. I got to bring it in, Don. This really is reminiscent of Star Trek VI, where the Romulan ambassador is telling the Federation to take out the Klingons. They'll never be weaker again. I can see this becoming a bleeding ulcer for Putin, and China decide to rearrange the eastern borders of the Russians and do their own little incursion into Russia while they're preoccupied.
Well,
I mean, the Chinese are supposed to be the Romulans in the Roddenberry verse.
I'll take your word for it, but I can tell you a lot of this, as I mentioned, reminds me of 1917. Yep. And, for those of you who don't remember that, you had the Kerensky government got installed, then the Bolsheviks came in, and then you have the Reds, the Whites, the Greens fighting each other.
Yeah.
10 different countries there were U.S. troops in Russia.
Yeah, we had actually Vladivostok. Yeah, Vladivostok.
Was it Vladivostok, or was it? I think it might have been Archangel. But
I think you're right. Vladivostok was actually where that was the other with the White Russians and the Red Russians.
Well, Vladivostok, I think there were Japanese troops there, and you had the Czechoslovakian Legion that wound up getting lost and had to go all the way to Vladivostok to get rescued. It's a fascinating period of time history, and one that I would prefer not to relive when there's nuclear weapons in play.
Yeah, and that was when they were taking the trains to the front. World War One. They're taking the trains, and so on.
Yeah, people think that the shooting stopped on November 11th, 1918. Oh no, it didn't. No. The Russians were doing that. There was a war in Turkey. I mean, still there was all sorts of stuff going on.
It's like, I mean, if you look at our Civil War, right? You think shooting stopped just because Lee surrendered mathematics? I'm sure you had some good old boys still going around.
Arguably, the shooting never stopped.
But I mean, it does look a lot like. I mean, that's one thing Putin. I don't think Putin's a student of history. I don't think he understands history. If he understood history, he would not be, because he's taking a very big risk here. If he does not have full control over Ukraine, I am talking full control. He can't have insurrections, guerrilla warfare in the streets. He's done, frankly.
Honestly, I don't think he has full control over his faculties. I really don't. I mean, he seems very off. I mean, this is a guy who has stayed in power for, he's been in power for 20 years now, basically.
Yeah. I mean, he's been the law.
Yeah, he's basically become, he just seems off. None of this seems like a strategic move in the manner that, that he would have done in the past. And, I'm sure that he certainly underestimated the domestic resistance to this. He certainly underestimated the Ukrainian resistance. And I agree with you. This could be his undoing. The problem's like everything else. Okay, great. Putin's the devil you know. What's the devil you don't know? What's next?
Maybe we'll get lucky and get a Boris Yeltsin.
As much as you'd like to think that, but let's face it. Most of the people in high places in in Putin's government are kleptocrats just like him.
Yeah. Or we put in, or here's the other thing, we could put in a provisional government, kind of like what we did, in Japan after the war. Because I think Putin, if he has to fight house to house, street fightings, the Russian people don't want to see body bags. They still have memories of Afghanistan. Can you imagine if we start giving Stinger missiles to these guys along with javelins? There'll be a lot of Russian helicopters going down pretty fast, and that will bring them to their knees. The javelins will make their tanks ineffective, frankly. And I mean the real javelins, not the AMC Pacers that Joe Biden wants to send. I heard he was going to call George Romney and order him to quadruple production of the AMC javelin in every color possible, so he could send them to Ukraine for the war efforts.
There's an argument to be made. We could just find, whatever Grand Duchess Marina Vladimirovna is doing these days, and just put her on the throne and just pretend like the last 100 years never happened.
And here, by the way, funny you should mention that. There is a case to be made to bring the czars back. Frankly, return of the czar and czarina. We could do what the empire did. The empire, after Cromwell.
I thought you were talking about Star Trek. Okay, this is
I thought we were going back to another.
No, the Empire. Yeah.
I'm with you.
Actually, although when I do say Empire, I do usually use that to refer to the Klingon Empire.
Well, yeah, because they just put Charles II back on the throne and pretended it never happened.
Yeah, I mean, I believe the current house is the house of Tudor. No, was it? Yeah,
now?
The Tudors are what? No, the Tudors. Then Tudors were the ones that were taken out. Stuart was taken up by Cromwell, and they brought William and Mary back from Orange and installed him as the king.
Well, no. They put Charles II on the throne, and then eventually his son was James II. Hold on, now I gotta look it up because now it's gonna bother me. They put William on the throne. Yeah, it was James II. Technically, it was James II and seventh, the second of the second of England and the seventh of Scotland. But then they put William and Mary on the throne. Arguably, the English don't like it when you mention this. Arguably, the last time that England was conquered by a foreign invader. English like to pretend it was 1066. It wasn't. It was William and Mary.
But I've got cousins that are that live in the Empire, and they hate it when I refer. I go, well, weren't William and Mary from Denmark, or weren't they Dutch? You don't have. It's not really. It's kind of like the episode of Deep Space Nine where Dax is marrying Worf and Martok's wife is talking about, and then Dax says, "I believe the grandmother you referred to was just a concubine of the emperor."
I mean, Queen Mary was English.
She was legit, but William was not.
Well, William was definitely Dutch.
Yeah.
The Stockholder of the Dutch.
And he also made the deal that hey, we're going to be equals. So it's not going to be Queen Mary and William. And William gets to be king if Mary buys the farm, so to speak.
I don't know how they pulled that deal off, but it seems sketchy as hell.
Well, the Empire. They like the royals. They like it's even in the Commonwealth. India throws a party for Queen Victoria's birthday every year. They do fireworks and all that. But what's funny is now the younger generation of Indians they want to rename Victoria Station, and they're getting stiff opposition from their older generation of people that say, no, we'd be so disrespectful to Empress Victoria. And I mean,
why not? She's been dead for 120 years,
But see, what's funny is the Indians they love the royals. They love Queen Elizabeth. They love Prince Charles. They actually have a reverence to them. They don't want to pull down the statues and so.
I think clearly we need to restore the North Sea Empire under Canute back in the 1000s.
Yes, why not? But again, this whole Russia thing is, I think, also, by the way, Biden is showing his utter incompetence on every front. I wrote an article just the other day, Brian. I'll share that with you. It was, you can go check it out on the Montgomery County Republican website. But it's kind of like the butterfly effect. It is the election affect what happens? Like it or not, if President Trump were president, I do not think we'd have this problem in Ukraine, frankly.
Of course not, because Trump just did whatever Putin wanted him to do.
And we would not
that's
have.
true, though. It's like, Putin wanted NATO destabilized. He didn't want Ukraine in NATO. Trump wanted to get NATO out. He wanted us out of NATO.
Mhm.
So Putin didn't need to invade Ukraine.
And I think also the other functionality is we would not have these supply chain issues, frankly. We would not have. And when I go to the Kensington Safeway, the freezer section, or even the Bethesda Giant for that matter, the freezer section would not look like a 1980s Soviet supermarket.
Yeah, it does have a lot of Red Dawn feeling right now.
It's like the shelves are empty, and it's, and a lot of people say, you got a lot of people that are saying no endless wars, I hate to keep using Star Trek analogies, but it was kind of like when you had the Klingon Civil War, and as Ambassador Kalar said, Klingon conflicts rarely stay internal. First, it draws in their neighbors, and then eventually the Federation will be drawn into the war. And honestly, that is exactly what will happen here. This has the potential of what happens if Putin goes into Poland.
Oh, then it's war. I mean, then that's war.
And because I don't think he's going to stop. This goes back to 1935. This is when Mussolini bombed Ethiopia. And
it still took him a year and a half to beat Ethiopia.
Exactly. Well, what's even funnier is they brought down Italian bombers with basically spear throwers, and so on. And which is, tells
Nobody's
you how
accused Italy of being a world-class army during the war.
They were the soft underbelly. Remember, we liberated Italy before we did even Normandy, frankly.
Notice how much of France Italy claimed during that part of the war? Not much.
I know, and that's so sad because
like their truck broke down right across the border or something like that,
And by the way, Winston Churchill had a great idea. Right? He says he was, but FDR, socialist extraordinaire, hero of AOC, basically said no, it's too risky. Winston, he wanted to do Operation Anvil, which was create a D-Day style invasion up the Adriatic, which would put Allied forces in Central Eastern Europe. And if we had done that, there would never have been a Prague Spring.
Don't forget, Churchill was also the one who thought up Operation Unthinkable, which was the invasion of Soviet-controlled lands pretty much 20 minutes after VE Day. He wanted to push to Moscow. He wanted to keep going. And
Churchill understood.
US and France were like, we can't really do that, partner.
Yeah, we don't have the stomach for the war.
We also were still fighting Japan at the time, so.
Yeah. And honestly, that is one of the, if you look at the things about, I tell you right about now, I'm sure there's some Americans that, should we not, maybe we should rethink what we did during World War II, forcing the Japanese to give up China.
There is an argument that just manifest destiny would fix a lot of this.
Yeah. And by the way, here's the thing. China has, because what's going to happen if this is unchecked, China's going to invade free China, Taiwan.
Yes.
I can see, and then I wouldn't be surprised if China decides to lay claims on the northern Japanese islands, which they've been disputing.
You mean Russia?
No, China.
You said China.
That's what I said. There's a couple of islands that China is claiming are Chinese islands that are right now Japanese islands. The Russian islands are a little bit more.
The Falklands are still claimed by Russia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're not going to get them.
No.
But I want to see if China, I think really what we need to do is bring back the policy of containment for China. We nuclearize Japan. I know they don't want it, but it's for their own good. If we had ground-based ICBMs in Taiwan, China would not dare.
Well, you don't need ICBMs in Taiwan. All you need are the short-range ones.
That is true.
You don't have to hit them. You don't have to go too far. All you got to do is be able to hit Beijing and Shanghai, and that'll get somebody's attention. But I agree with you. If you had some sort of nuclear deterrent in Taiwan, China would not mess with it.
Yeah.
North Korea might, just because they're all insane. But
Yeah. But North Korea would be, I think North Korea is kind of like China's pit bull. They kind of pull the chain as they see fit, so to speak.
I agree.
But I don't know. It's like I think this reminds me of 1950 when Rocket Man's grandfather, I believe it was, when he invaded South Korea. There was I forget the name. There was a summit that the Chinese,
Oh yeah,
Ho Chi Minh and Kim Il Sung. I believe is that Kim Il Sung? Was that North Korea, Kim Il Sung, or was he South Korea,
yes.
Kim Il Sung? They had a summit. I would say it was in Moscow, and it was supposed to be a grand war of unification. Harry Truman had the good sense to put the Seventh Fleet between China and Taiwan, which thwarted that effort. And we had the French run interference in Vietnam, so to speak. That prevented, we would have had, if we didn't have a president that had the good sense to do that, we would have been looking at an invasion of Taiwan, North Vietnam, before they invaded South Vietnam. It would have happened right in 1950. So we would have had a much more global war happening at that time, opposed to just that one front. And that, Harry Truman, crazy liberal, he's a right-wing zealot by today's standards. If you look at the Democrat Party, he was a crazy liberal. He was a big government guy. He wanted to socialize medicine everywhere. He didn't like the national highways. He wanted to have people take trains everywhere, like a good socialist, But he did have the forethought and put the Seventh Fleet, which prevented a bigger expanded war. I think right now, Joe Biden doesn't have the thought pattern to think like Harry Truman or anybody in his State Department or DOD for that matter, because they're too busy worried about transgenders in the military opposed to.
It is problematic, the focus of some of these things. I agree.
Yeah, but
we also can't fight a two-front war right now.
No,
we
can't.
Not equipped to fight a two-front war.
No, we're not. And it comes down to, it's like, where do we draw the line? Do we leave NATO to fight the Russians and we commit our forces to defending Taiwan? Well, we do have that treaty with Taiwan.
But we have the treaty with NATO too. We have treaty obligations to our NATO brethren as well. So and I think that, the question is which domino falls first. Like you said, is it Poland? Is it the Baltics? It's probably the Baltics.
Yeah, but see, that's where it becomes total war, I think,
Well, and that's what you got to worry about, is that you've already got Putin posturing about nuclear deterrence. And, I don't think he really wants the smoke, but because he knows that he knows that if the Allies get involved, he has no chance.
Mm-hmm.
And
by the way, why did we have these? Why did Joe Biden just put these soft sanctions on the Russians? We can really cripple them. He should have gotten up yesterday and said, "We're going to start drilling. We're going to drill here, drill now, drill, baby, drill. We're going to reopen the pipelines. The oil is going to flow. We will send oil to Europe during these. We will keep it kind of like Lend-Lease was. Remember Lend-Lease? That's another." Not Lend-Lease.
Well, it's not just that. I think that
the Berlin airlift,
with all these kleptocrats, we should have seized everything. We should own the government should own half of Miami Beach right now. Based on all of the, all the property that they have down there and all those assets. We should have seized private assets, particularly those in Putin's most inner circle, and made them directly feel the pain, not just these soft sanctions, but make it so hard on these folks that we never give it back. We keep it, we freeze the assets, and it's over with.
And that's, and we got to play hardball. We got a president that's playing softball because he's soft in the head.
Yeah, he's not doing things the way they should be done. And it's problematic. And, I hope it doesn't bite us in the ass. I'm really concerned, that first off, I'm concerned that our response to Afghanistan led to this, that Putin doesn't make that move without that move first happening.
Very true. Very
but,
true.
You know, at some point, when does Joe Biden become Neville Chamberlain?
He is
You know?
right now, basically.
I mean,
by the way, Don, quick question. Have you seen Code Pink or the Answer Coalition anywhere mounting these massive protests against the war? Or why are they not in front of the Russian embassy every day? Code Pink, Answer, what was that other, the other George Soros funded groups? Why aren't they out there protesting? Where's Jesse Jackson? Why isn't he protesting the Russians right now? They all were first in line to protest President Bush when we did the liberation. By the way, real quick, Brian, I shared this image with you, and I think Don, you've seen it, where they count all the wars committed by presidents prior, and they count Gulf of Sidra, the liberation of Grenada, as a war. But they don't seem to count the bombing of Syria a war.
Yeah, it was kind of weird.
I just find it funny. But Don, have you seen Code Pink or any of those guys anywhere?
Yeah, we know that a lot of these leftist groups are nowhere to be found right now. It doesn't feed into what they need to do right now.
Just like they were quiet when Obama was nuking the moon or whatever it was he was doing.
Yeah, and right, and the Democrats have been relatively silent. A lot of them, instead of speaking,
where are the Pat Moynahans and the Scoop Jacksons of this Democrat era? I mean, Joe Manchin has been quiet about this whole thing too. All the Republicans seem to have this love affair with Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin has been pretty quiet on this whole thing. He hasn't run to the microphones. I mean, where is Chuck Schumer, for crying out loud?
Well, I mean, what do you want them to say? Honestly, what do you want them to say?
Well,
I'd rather Scoop quiet than say something stupid.
Well, Scoop Jackson, Pat Moynihan, Sam Nunn, the Cold War warriors on the Democrat side, where are they? Bill Bradley. They would have. Yeah, but my point is there are no Democrats of that caliber anymore. They're all a bunch of pinko commie lovers, frankly. Look at AOC, look at Tlaib, look at the Squad, look at Maxine Waters, that woman,
I mean, but here's the thing. It's not exactly these days like Republicans are sending their best and brightest to Congress. Okay? Let's just be real.
Fair point. But I'd like to say our people are better than their people. Our people have functioning brain
I don't have
cells.
opinions. I don't have high opinions of anybody in Congress, so sure, we'll go with it.
Well, remember,
one is better than zero.
Last night, Governor Orlick made a great point. He goes, elected office is one job in America and public school teachers where merit doesn't matter. Any idiot that can talk faster than the other guy can get elected. It's not about qualifications or merit.
Including Brian's favorite president who lost the last election.
Yeah. There's another world somewhere on Earth 2 where Mitch Daniels served 2 wonderful terms as president, and we have flying cars and everything else. Marco
Rubio.
There's another guy high on my list of people who disappointed me that I should have known better about.
But what's funny is you still have the Rand Paul and Ron Paul bots running around, and it's like nobody's listening to. Oh, yeah, good point. So we're almost out of time. So let's get the final thoughts, plural. You can have more than one thought, as I many times do. So let's start with you, Brian, Dr. Griffith.
Okay, first and foremost, thanks for having me back. Always good to be able to jump on with you guys.
Yeah, we love having our Andy Rooney on,
A couple things. One, there's still time to run for office if you want to run for office. There's the extension here in Maryland. You still got some time. If you want to be a U.S. Senate candidate, trust me.
Nobody else you, Ryan Zimmerman.
Nobody else could is running, so you might as well run. If you want to actually do something other than yell at Facebook, just run for office. You can do that. Run for Central Committee. Please don't be a loser if you run for Central Committee. Actually show up to meetings. 2.
And not give money to Democrats.
Don't give money to Democrats. 2, Coke Starlight is out now, and it sucks.
What flavor is Coke Starlight?
Well, okay, if you go to the duckpin.com, you can read all about it. But Coke Starlight allegedly tastes like outer space, which is supposed to take like raspberries, but it tastes like cotton candy Pepsi. So it's just terrible. Don't buy it. Save yourself the $2. Go buy something. Go do something.
They have it in the zero. They do have Starlight Zero though.
They do, and that's what I had today, and it's just, it's not good, man. It's not good. Yeah, stick with the original. Stick with the original. I got 3 cases of it upstairs, like the big 35
if you can find it anywhere, the cherry vanilla Coke Zero is really good.
Oh, I know. Trust me. I am a connoisseur. That's every time I go to like find a Coke Freestyle machine, that's where I get a Coke Zero variant. So don't do that. Save your money. Baseball needs to get back on the field. And for God's sake, vote for Kelly Schultz in the Republican primary because we like to win around here.
Thank you, Brian. Donovan, final thoughts.
So I guess one thing there is just to mention that where Biden's approval ratings continue to sink, there's nothing is going right for him now. They're going to try to revive him, I guess, a little bit with his Supreme Court pick, and that'll be some, distraction to a certain extent. But I think partly too, as long as this whole Russia-Ukraine situation stays in the forefront, I think that even the historic nature as such of nominating a black judge to be the next Supreme Court justice will be somewhat overshadowed. She'll get confirmed. I mean, the votes are going to be there unless Republicans do something extraordinary and somehow pick off a Democrat or whatever to move to their side. Republicans would need to show unity. But I mean,
is the senator from New Mexico back from his leave for a stroke that he had? Is he back?
Well, no, not yet. But it depends on when Schumer and these guys schedule the hearings and the vote.
But remember, Senator from Oklahoma, Senator Inhofe's resigning soon.
What?
I don't remember when he's resigning though.
Can you not wait till elections? I mean, does he have to resign today? I mean,
I think he's resigned. He announced it earlier this week. He announced, he's resigning in 2023, so he's fine. Okay. They're having the special election next year, but he's resigning at the start of next year.
What's he running? Is he resigning just because he wants to resign, or is he actually?
He's resigning because he's 87. Wants to go home.
Something. Strom Thurmond. Strom Thurmond served until his last breath.
Is that a good thing?
Jesse Helms served until his last breath.
Well, that's part of the problem with some politicians. They don't know when to.
But the
quit.
good news, it is Oklahoma. We'll get another Republican in there, so it's not the end of the world.
But what kind of Republican?
Don Nichols, a Don Nichols Republican.
I would like to believe that.
There's a lot of good people in Oklahoma.
And there are a lot of Trump voters in Oklahoma.
I would love to see Steve Largent or J.C. Watts.
Oh God, there's some names from the past. Wow.
Yeah.
J.C. Watts. Yeah, J.C. Watts was a Lincoln Day dinner speaker in Montgomery County.
I think those guys are just fine doing whatever they're doing. And
Steve Largent hasn't run for office in 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, that's because he lost the primary he lost, I think, the governor's race in Oklahoma.
He did.
And that's why he's kind of. But I tell you, Steve Largent can come back to Washington as a United States senator. And he'd be a great senator, I think. Steve Largent. It would be fine. I'd be very happy with Senator Largent. And others.
How old is Steve Largent now?
He's 68.
Oh, he's a spring chicken. That's not that old. Don's younger than he is.
You can still get a term or two in there, right, Dwight?
Yeah, he's got 2, 3 maybe,
What's funny is that J.C. Watts has also been out of office for 20 years.
Yeah.
Then there's the former RNC chair, was it Jim Nicholson, who was also from Oklahoma, former governor. I think that's the name. Nicholson?
It's the same guy?
Yeah, I think so. He was RNC chair, and before that he was governor of Oklahoma, and he was a 2-term, very successful governor. He'd be a great senator too.
No, Jim Nicholson that was not. He was Secretary of Veterans Affairs eventually, but he wasn't the governor of Oklahoma.
I thought he was. Or Don Nichols is still around. He's not that old. He can come back to his old job for crying out loud. Don Nichols, you know. I'd have to go and get a new picture with Don Nichols because my picture with Don Nichols is.
Might as well say Don Rickles.
That's what I keep hearing.
Hey, by the way, real quick, let me just share one thing. Hey, Brian, just keep looking at the sliders as they go and tell me if you recognize anybody in. Not this one.
Yeah.
We're getting there. One more after this.
This is great content.
Yeah, there you go. Do you recognize anyone in that picture?
Well, that's Strom Thurmond in the middle.
Who do you see next to Strom Thurmond?
Well, I don't know. That went away.
Hold on, let me see. I need to
Great
put arrows in
content
here,
right now.
Yeah, but that was Councilman David Marks.
Was it?
Yes, go back. It's coming. We're going out. It's the guy. He was there. He's the guy next to Senator Thurmond. The other guy is my buddy Mitch.
Oh
Levin.
yeah, I see it. The guy on like right next to Thurmond on the right.
Yes.
Totally see it there. Thurmond's a lot taller than I thought he was. Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
well.
Yeah. But any other final thoughts, Don?
Yeah, just one more thought, which was Trump's True Social launch, which seemed to be an utter disaster in terms of an incredibly big wait list. They couldn't figure a lot of things out, and frankly, I just don't see the point in this whole thing. It's a Trump echo chamber, fine if you want to do it, but what a colossal waste of time for a lot of people. What do you need that for? And what they don't realize, at least I think, or they're maybe going to figure this out at some point, is that running a social media company is going to be a real tough thing. They're going to have to deal with a lot of issues that they complained about, with the other guys, with Facebook and Twitter and things like that, and who to allow on there, in a sense, what kind of language and posts and things like that. So they're going to wind up being just as big a censor to some people as they had been, claiming being censored by the big tech guys. So just a colossal waste of time and money. But it's kind of like those Dan Cox people and everything. There are those rabid fans out there. Fine, it's a free country, do whatever. But it's like I just wish those things would just go away.
Well, Trump's collecting a lot of emails.
Yep.
So there you go.
Yeah, we got DeSantis 2024 coming up.
And there was a lot of misinformation apparently at the beginning, where some news reports said that people were going to have to pay like $4.99 a week to be part of that. I don't.
No one's gonna.
Yeah, but more people than you think would pay $4.99 a week.
Oh, I'm sure of it. I mean, that would just be, man. There are a lot of Trump people who would do that. I mean, I think there's no doubt about it.
You know what they say about fools and their money.
That's right.
Yeah, well,
I got another final thought. Can I jump back in here?
Yeah, jump back in.
I've already seen a couple people running for office in Maryland. Mariella Roca, who's running for Congress in District 8, being one of them. I think Dan Cox is going down there too. Are at CPAC today, and there are no Maryland voters at CPAC. Nobody who's going to vote for you in a primary. Nobody's going to vote for you in a general election. You're wasting your time. You're telling me you're not serious if you're at CPAC right now.
Brian, do you remember when you and I were at CPAC? I introduced you to my nephew's roommate.
Yes.
The one who was attacked.
Yes, 2018, 19 or something like that.
Yeah, we went. Most of the reason people go there is to get pictures with celebrities. I mean,
and look, it's one thing if it was at National Harbor and you're out 2 hours to go and do the rounds, but if you're flying on a plane to Florida, you are committing campaign malpractice.
I hope they're not using campaign money to do it also.
Kim Klacik would.
That's true. By the way, as a former CPAC alumni, everyone should go to CPAC, Brian. Everybody. You know why? Because CPAC is awesome. Ronald Reagan spoke at CPAC. Barry Goldwater spoke at CPAC. William F. Buckley spoke at CPAC. And
that was the good days were good, weren't they?
Yeah, there was a heyday of CPAC. I'm just not sure where we are right now.
Well, I tell you this.
Hell, Don, we're in hell.
No, I'll tell you this. CPAC, Matt Schlapp has done a hell of a job running ACU CPAC. A lot better than David Keene, because that's the guy that was there when I was over at CPAC. David Keene, David Keene, good guy, but Matt Schlapp just took everything up to the next level, frankly.
Yeah, but CPAC and ACU were conservative back then.
They still are, right? They still are.
Are they?
They still are. Well, I'll tell you something off when we go offline, though. But I guess it's my turn for my final thoughts. A couple final thoughts I am officially running for county council at large in Montgomery County. I'm one of 4 Republicans running. I am using federal matching funds. Dwight Patel for MoCo.com. Send me $5. It gets matched 4 times. Well, I'm asking $5. That's all I need. So visit my website. I got some awesome content in there. A lot of good stuff. Videos are coming. Endorsements are coming. Big kickoff announcement coming on Maryland Day. And we've got a lot of fun stuff happening there. I'm also running for Central Committee. Vote for me. Before I've been shut up by the past 2 regimes. We used to put on some of the best Lincoln Day dinners and Reagan dinners. And our conventions are second to none, particularly because we were the only county that does a convention. But our conventions
now are second to some, which is amazing.
We're second to everyone. We're last. But I mean, Brian, you've been to some of our county conventions. We've had the breakfast, the dinners, and the lunches, I should say, not dinners, and the tributes we do to people like Ellen Sauerbrey, Bob Ehrlich, and everyone else. A lot of great people. We've had Jim Gilmore speak. We've had Ellen Sauerbrey, Steve Shue, Alan Kittleman, all sorts of great. Who's of Maryland politics. Dave Bossy has spoken.
Yeah, and they grew over the years too. I remember back when they were at universities at Shady Grove.
Yeah, and, they're going back to the future this year.
By the last one, it was a big deal. Hotels, hospitality suites, the whole 9 yards.
We did.
It's a shame it went backwards like that.
Yes,
but it is what it is, and onward and upward, and adapt and overcome.
Regime change is something that needs to happen.
Regime change begins at home, right?
That's right. And my other final thoughts is everybody check out Euripsy Morgan is running for Congress against Dutch Ruppersberger. Check her out. And Euripsy's a great person. Go support Euripsy for its CD2. If you live in Anne Arundel County, go out and support Jessica Hare. She is running for county executive. She's the only electable Republican running for county executive, frankly, in Anne Arundel County. Jessica's a great candidate, fighter, and top-notch person. And Brian, as an Anne Arundel County person, you probably would agree with that.
Yeah, I haven't formally agreed yet, but I think everybody knows where I'm going.
Yeah. And don't forget to if you guys missed the Toho marathon a few weeks ago when they were celebrating the 212th birthday of Toho Studios. Toho Studios gave us great gems like Godzilla, Mothra, Attack of the Astro Monster, Rodan. They're going to do another marathon next weekend, so set your DVRs for that. Everyone on Comet TV.
Yeah, I'll jump right on that.
And that, and that is my final thoughts. We'll be back next week with a lot of fun. And by the way, Brian, since we say you're Andy Rooney, any Andy Rooney comments any gripes you want to talk about, like packagings or anything like that?
No, but I would like to remind everybody that you should play wiffle ball. Oldlinewiffle.com.
Awesome. Good night, everyone.